What's up, guys? George Balekji here with Foxboro Rush. But hey, check out the latest episode of Hold My Banner. Ante Campbell and I run through the latest we saw in the series between the Clippers Nuggets, Knicks Pistons, what we expect from Celtics Magic Game 2, and then we talk plenty more around the league in the NBA postseason. That's Hold My Banner for everything Celtics, everything NBA, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's get to Foxboro Rush. What's up? What's happening? George Balekji, Sean McGuire here on Foxboro Rush. Sean, it is draft week, my friend. It is draft mother effing week.
Yeah. It is. I'm so glad I cannot wait. I cannot wait for Thursday night. I just want this over at this point. I'm really looking forward to the draft itself, but I'm also really looking forward to the draft being behind us.
Scrooge?
But yeah, we're here.
You hate Christmas, too?
No, it's just, I don't. No, I like it. It's just, it's been what month are we in at this point? I'm losing track of time.
I have been looking at offensive tackles since I think week 6. Since Drake May's debut, I was like, let's start talking offensive tackles.
Yeah.
Love has
Thursday
no boundaries or timeline. For you, on the other hand, all right, man. 6th day of Christmas, you're like, can we get it over with? Like, just get me to whatever you like. I don't even know.
No, it's just it's like game day. Like the anticipation has been built, and we're here now. That's what I'm looking at.
I would expect you to like the draft though, because you don't have any anticipation of excitement for game day for the Cowboys. So I think you'd like the draft.
Yeah, I knew that it was only a matter of time until that happened. I wouldn't say the Patriots are all that different at this point either, though. So you're getting a good player at this point.
Drake May over Dak Prescott for my eyes and my liking. All right. We're not even 2 minutes in, 2 digs at the Cowboys, all-time high. We'll be talking about some possibilities. Maybe the Patriots make a trade back with the Cowboys, stay top 12, get a premier position, get more picks. Sean McGuire, myself, we'll run through our ideal Patriot draft scenarios. We'll lay out both our full-on breakdown of the full 3 days. We go from there. We'll also talk some scenarios when it comes to what could happen with the top 3 picks and for the Patriots at 4. And then we got a mailbag. Also, hear from Yogi Roth, NFL Network. Also, with the Big Ten Network. Also hosts a Y Option podcast. Was a wide receiver at Pittsburgh. Was a quarterbacks coach under Pete Carroll. Now doing some great work for the Big Ten Network. So we talk Big Ten prospects. New Big Ten like Oregon. Old Big Ten like Minnesota with him. All right, Sean, let's get into it. So I want to start with yours, man. I texted you. I go, hey, go run a quick mock, 7 rounds. But I was like, I want you to control it and give me your ideal scenario within the statute of limitations of reality. I'm going to trade the house, get Travis Hunter, then trade all the way back at all. No. So within the statute of limitations of reality, I'm probably not using statute of limitations correctly there, but I don't care. What's your ideal 3-day draft for the Patriots?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if we're pulling up how it looks on the screen right now.
Are.
Oh, I love that. That.
Our producer, Adrian, pulls out the stops.
I'm going to be honest. I know this is ideal, and it's not to be confused with like the most realistic, but I'm pretty sure what I did in this is better than any ideal haul I could have came up with. And maybe some will argue it gets a little far-fetched at times. You look to see 2 first-round picks and Jalen Walker again, Patriots drafting Jalen Walker at 20. That's obviously one of them. Mason Taylor at 69. You might argue that is another one. But overall, this is better than I could have ever imagined. And so we'll go pick by pick if that's how you want to do it. And I'll just start at number 7. So what I did is I traded back from 4 to 7, got the Jets, got 7, 42, 73 from the Jets.
Which I like, because if you're going to trade within a division and you're giving the Jets a 4th overall pick, because I don't think a 1st, a 2nd, and a this year's 3rd is realistic, only moving up from 7 to 4. But within the division, hey, Jets, you want them, you got to give us the house. So I like that that you add to that.
Yeah, so then you get Campbell, you move down a few spots, you get Campbell, so you have to feel more comfortable with that. Obviously the whole debate with his length and everything, but I still feel like Will Campbell is an offensive tackle. It sounds like, Mike Vrabel, both publicly, privately, you hear some reports, they've expressed confidence in Will Campbell as an offensive tackle.
Yeah.
It's the biggest need, so just use your first overall, use your first draft pick and address the biggest need. I think that's where I fall. That's how I've looked at it for months at this point. So grabbed Will Campbell at 7. In doing that, in moving down the board and getting those, 3 top 75 picks, I was then able to turn that and move back up. And so I saw, I'm going through on this Pro Football Focus simulator, and you start to see Jalen Walker slide and slide and slide. I'm like, all right, paused, traded up. And what I did is I turned both of the Jets picks and traded it for number 20 with the Broncos, got Jalen Walker there. So essentially, the way you can kind of look at it is the Patriots turned 4 and 106 into Will Campbell and Jalen Walker. And I just think that is if they could do this, we're talking about Elliott Wolf and company as, the best in the league when it comes to maneuvering the board. And we're certainly not thinking about Elliott Wolf missing on wide receiver after wide receiver or anything like that. Like, those things are so far in the past. If he's able to pull off a Thursday night, that looks like something like this. Obviously, Walker's in play at 4 as well, I would say. Just that chess piece on defense, really highly regarded during the whole pre-draft process. And so I just think if you can turn this into a first round, that is a first round for the ages, just an absolute coup. And so certainly fits ideal in my opinion. Moving down, so then to day 2, you get Jaden Higgins. He's there at 38. I think this is very realistic. We've done many mock drafts where he is in that spot. And, I think it was Schefter that just came out the other day and said he expects, kind of a run of day 2 receivers. Obviously, you're hoping the Patriots are early in that run. But, just the more we get into the pre-draft process, I really like Higgins. The combination of size and speed and versatility and route running. And, we've went into it a ton. And I really think he's maybe the best day 2 receiver for them, period. So you get him at 38. You got to feel great about that. Then I got Mason Taylor at number 69. Nice. I know you're going to say that, George. 3rd round pick.
No, I'm mature. I'm above those jokes.
So 3rd round pick. And again, this is another one that I think it's fair to be like, is this really going to happen? Is he going to slip to number 69 overall? It's just, I
say no.
By pretty much everyone. Yeah, and I think that's probably fair. I think it's fair to think he's considered tight end 3 behind Tyler Warren, behind Colston Loveland, but he's right there. He's certainly a top 40 prospect, I think, in a deep class. So if you were to see him as a top 40, top 50 pick, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility.
I think he would be if he falls past the Eagles, say at 32, they could get greedy. Jets at 42. Okay. Now you have the Jets pick. But then again, the Broncos at 42, they need pass catchers. I think he's top 40. Yeah. But what you lay out, literally swap, go Mason Taylor at 38, best available wide receiver at 69, which would be a Jalen Royals, maybe my guy Jalen Knoll, Elika Yomenor, even a Kyle Williams who's catching steam, and I don't think he falls to the 4th round. So I see the vision. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you take if Mason Taylor's there at 69, you sprint the cards and pick up the phone quick. Whatever they do these days, it's 2025. But no, I get it.
Yeah, so I like that one too. Moving to the 3rd round pick for the Patriots is number 77. This is one of my guys. I think over the last few months is Jared Wilson, the center out of Georgia. He not the biggest guy, not a ton of size. What is he like? 6'3", 310 is his size, but just really athletic. Ran the fastest 40 in the combine. And you need that position. I know Garrett Bradbury was brought in this offseason, but David Andrews out the door. It's certainly not a position where you're solidified long-term. And I just think, Jared Wilson, whether you're going to rank him as the top center, he's either the best or the second best center in the class. It's either, if you're going to say that, Gray Zabel is a guard, then you're probably going to say that Jared Wilson is the best center. If you're going to say Zabel is a center, then you're probably going to say Wilson's the second best center behind him. So I would just feel really good about getting him in that spot in that 3rd round as well. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, or if you want me to just keep going
I like Jared Wilson. What's funny with this Georgia team, we talk about the defensive lineman, Jalen Walker. It's also, Michael Williams on the outside as another edge who's really good at run defense. Tate Rutledge, Dylan Fairchild, Jared Wilson. The 3 starters in the interior offensive line for Georgia, all our 4th round picks are better. Jared Wilson will be a long-time center in the NFL. High IQ, good footwork. Isn't the most athletic, but is like center, is C2 in this one. Is center 2 behind a Gray Zabel, or it could be center 1. For the Patriots, it makes a ton of sense where, you have Garrett Bradbury. He's okay. You don't have to rush a Jared Wilson in. You have depth at the guard spots. Big Mike Onwenu, Layden Robinson. Caden Wallace can get pushed into a guard. Jared Wilson, you can let him marinate for a season and a half, maybe 2. All right, Garrett Bradbury, thank you so much. You're getting up there in age. You're all right. Jared Wilson steps in. And then he is David Andrews 2.0 of he's your center the next 8 to 10 years. So I like that.
Exactly.
And Brashard Smith, good multifaceted running back.
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting in the 5th round. And you can kind of see a little bit of a trend here. I mean, what's that? 5 of the first 6 picks on offense, 3 of the first 6 at skill players for Drake May. Brashard Smith here he was the one that he was a wide receiver at Miami. He transfers to SMU, becomes an outstanding, dynamic, explosive running back for them. It was like 1,700 yards from scrimmage, 2,000 all-purpose yards with his kick return duties. He's so explosive. I think he would be like really fun, in the Josh McDaniels. We talk obviously so much about the pass catching backs when it comes to Josh McDaniels. And I think he would be, his route running and his explosiveness would just be really fun. And then I'll keep it going to Malachi Moore. I got him in the 5th round at 171. And now you'll see and this is how I think the Patriots should approach it. So this is kind of the theme that I wanted to portray in my mock draft is you spend heavy and spend early on offense. Go offense. And, then you get to day 3 and you find those, diamond in the roughs or, that sort of thing for Vrabel on defense. And I think Malachi Moore is another one of those. He's a good safety, Alabama product, 2-year captain for them. He's projected right around this round, 5th round pick, not elite size, but certainly versatile enough. He's good. He's a good football player. He's a good value on
starter
day 3.
at Alabama, and in the system they want to run, you can trust him in man. He's not the best. He's not like the natural athlete that can play man in the nickel. Can come down from the safety spot though, play in the box. Jabril Peppers, Kyle Duggar help out with that. Again, this is a guy, and at the fifth round pick, someone you can develop when you move on from a Jabril Peppers contract. Maybe you don't bring Kyle Duggar and continue to extend him. He'll step into that type of role. Good run defender, really instinctual. He started as a freshman at Alabama. You got to be smart to do that. Let's start there.
2-year captain too, like we said. I mean, that's the intangibles are there for sure. I'm sure, and that's got to be something that Vrabel and these guys are looking for, especially with the day 3 pick. Sticking with defense, I know your guy. You've talked about a little bit. Cam Horsley, Boston College product. How do we get a Boston College guy drafted the Patriots? Because it just feels like a safe bet to think that's exactly. It just feels like a safe bet at this point. And just to drive the point home, obviously I spent so much time drafting offense early on that the Patriots really didn't target in my mock draft. They didn't target a defensive tackle in a very deep class, in a loaded class. They didn't even spend a top 100 pick on a guy like that. But that's because I think, Milton Williams and Christian Barmore and Keon White, I don't think that is the most pressing need. And maybe long-term, you want to feel better when it comes to the Barmore situation, everything like that.
And
so
they still need depth in that
doing
position.
that.
They still need depth in that position too.
No, and I completely see that. I think when the more I went into this draft, I'm like, let's stay away from that side at this point. Again, we added Jalen Walker in the 1st round and traded up quite a bit to get him. So we got a really good front 7 player up there. But Cam Horsley sides to us. I did see when I was looking, kind of looking some stuff up on him, he's described as playing with violence. And I just think when I heard that, I'm like, this is Mike Vrabel's guy. This is exactly who the Patriots, exactly the prototype the Patriots want on that side of the ball. So I think a realistic pick, certainly a late day 3 realistic pick for the Patriots. And then I rounded out with the linebacker from Iowa, Jay Higgins at number 238 is where I got him. Yeah. And not to be confused with Jaden Higgins. So we got both the Jay Higginses. But this guy, first team All-American.
One is Jay, because Jaden Higgins would have to literally have JAYD period Higgins. Yeah. And then Jay Higgins would just have JAY. Huh. They're never on the field at the same time.
Yeah,
Maybe,
and
maybe
unless
one's
one wants just Higgins and one wants Jay Higgins, or
maybe one's a junior, the other one's a fourth. Jay Higgins a fourth.
we can figure out how their jerseys are going to look like down the road. That I feel like that's a post draft, maybe a Sunday conversation, day after the draft, when we're really turning some screws. We can get into that stuff.
To your point, I am like so
meant.
deep into the like swamp of the NFL draft. Like this is the things I need my dumb brain to continue to function and be sane. I'm thinking, how do they do that for the jerseys? I like it. And then it's in the 7th round, you get a rotational defensive tackle, really explosive, can fit into any scheme, good run defender, really big body. That's developmental. And then a Jay Higgins, that's Jack Gibbons, Robert Spillane. Like you're a 7th round pick, you're a UDFA, develop at that spot. And he'd wear the green dot. Do that now in college. He wore the green dot.
Captain for those guys too
at Iowa.
I mean, you look at his resume and it's like, he's an All-American last year. He's the Big Ten linebacker of the year. He's a team captain. I mean, he's like again, to go back to like the intangible side of things, like that stuff is legit. He's available in the 7th round because he's undersized at 6 foot and 225 pounds. So
and he's not a freaky athlete. Yeah, exactly.
But you're talking a dart throw, on day 3, late, 7th round pick. Like it is certainly worth a guy like that, get him into Vrabel and let Vrabel coach him up.
I'd be all for that. Hey, I love it, man. Like you said, I think that's brilliant. And to your point, you took 4 and 106, turned it into an all-pro guard who can be your stopgap left tackle for a season until you figure that out. And Jalen Walker, a tweener, but if he works out at edge, man, he'd be a game wrecker. So I love that. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna shoot from the hip. I'm gonna run through mine, and then we'll break it down after you and me, Sean. So. Alrighty. You and I, same thing. I think the ideal scenario for the Patriots is they would trade back but stay top 8. So I'm going to trade with the Panthers. I'm giving them 4 to get the 8th, the 57th, and 111th overall pick. So I'm going with the 4th in there. Maybe I have to throw in another pick. But I'm moving back from 4 to 8 and taking Ted McMillan. Wide receiver 1, apex predator. That's the guy that Drake May would love. 6'4", 215, massive frame, vacuum hands, is violent going up for the football, and is the type of player that every defensive coordinator has to scheme around when your offense gets into the red zone. He did terrific with his catch radius, catching the ball off his shoelaces away from his body. Someone as accurate as Drake May with Ted McMillan, watch out. But with the extra picks, going back into the first, because great offensive tackles, left tackles, you don't find them in the second often. Patriots at that point, get back to 21, take the best left tackle available. In this scenario, I'm going Josh Simmons. Then, with that 2nd round pick that they got from the Panthers, best available wide receiver. I'm going offense again. My guy, Jalen Knoll out of Iowa State. 5'10", 195, athletic freak, 2-year captain. Tyler Lockett with more juice. You're going to get a 10-year starter out of him. 80 catch, 1,000-yard, 8 touchdown seasons. Ted McMillan's your wide receiver to the outside. Jalen Knoll is your elite slot receiver, and you could line him up on the outside as well. After that, we're going into the trenches. We're going on the defensive side. Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee. You signed Milton Williams. Christian Barmore, I'm expecting him to return. He's your depth interior pass rusher. Long arms, heavy hands, high motor, owns a line of scrimmage. Omar Norman Lott, that's a Mike Vrabel guy, and that's depth at the defensive tackle spot. But I'm not done yet. Trade back in the top 100. Femi Oladejo out of UCLA. I'm going with him with the 78th overall pick. He is 6'3", 260 edge, freak athlete, 82-plus inch wingspan, long arms. He was built in an edge rusher's lab, and he knows how to use his God-given ability and traits. And when you read about him, he'll be a developmental pass rusher, but he'll be a day one player because he has a dog mindset, elite power where he moves offensive tackles, high motor, and you take this foundation of a player, give him to Terrell Williams, he is going to be your game wrecker for the next years to come. Round 4, Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State. Keeping this simple, they need a slot corner. You got Gonzalez, you got Carlton Davis, you need a guy to match up in the slot. He's sticky, he's good in man, and he will be a day one starter. A little undersized, but we heard Mike Vrabel talk about the value of that position. That's what they're going to go with. Then next up, going back to the offense, Mitchell Evans, the tight end out of Notre Dame. Not great at anything, but good at everything. Really good catch radius, really soft hands, great on contested catches and fighting for the ball. And you know what he is, end of the day? Yeah, he's not elite. He's good. He's big. He's a rangy athlete. He's explosive. Strong hands, good body control. Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, you guys are the Jedi Masters. Mitchell Evans is your young Padawan. You're going to develop him, and he's going to be Drake May's best friend by the time it's his second year in the league. Next, let's get depth in the running back position. Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers. Fantastic vision, really quick feet that can take any slim hole and break it open for a run. Always falls forward. 0 career fumbles at Rutgers and over 700 career touches. 0 fumbles. He'd be a good utility back, and he'd be a guy that you can dial back the touches for Ramondre Stevenson. It keeps him fresh, keeps Kyle Monangai fresh, keeps the offense moving forward, and he'd be fantastic in needing to run the ball and set up the play action. Oh, and Kyle Monangai, he's from New Jersey. You need guys from Jersey if you want to win. It's a fact of life. Don't ask me about it. Everyone knows that. You need dogs from New Jersey. Facts. And then in the 7th, Jalen Travis, athletic, 6'7", 340. Probably ends up going top 200 in this one. But I think, again, you want to build up depth. Developmental swing tackle. You have him, and he develops behind Morgan Moses. He could be good at that position. You just need good at right tackle. You need a lead at left tackle to protect your righty quarterback. Finally, to round it all out, Donovan Edwards out of Michigan. He's a weapon. He's Aaron Jones. Line him up all over, in the backfield, in the slot, out wide, good route runner. And Josh McDaniels scheming to get Donovan Edwards the ball in space. That's a home run waiting to happen. So that's my draft, Sean. We both will go with the trade back. A little different up top, though. You went all trenches, and I get it. My thing with the Ted McMillan, just go after, get that wide receiver one, get that difference maker. And with everything you accrue, boom, get back to the top 25. Josh Simmons, Josh Connerly, maybe Kelvin Banks, maybe Ante Ursary, go left tackle in the top 25.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think it's, pretty, it speaks volumes that both of our ideal picks are them trading back and, trying to coop something from that. Obviously, they need to find a partner to trade back with, and in these scenarios they did, but who knows if that'll be the case on draft night. I do think, you just hinted at this too, you went certainly more heavy than I did, defense, in terms of day 1 and day 2. A few, what'd you go? Defensive tackle, the edge, corner. Yep. So kind of mix and match a few different things where I definitely did go had the running back early and the wide receiver in the second round, that sort of thing. So definitely you went.
But you did it right because here's the thing there is a drop off in left tackles and edge rushers after the first round. Yeah. And Femi Oladejo would fall to the 3rd because he's a project, but he has that framework. You just have to find a way to make it all work, right? He's a piece of Play-Doh. You're going to make it into something fantastic. You go Jalen Walker in the 1st, you're set on edge, and you can wait later. Yeah. And the same with Norman Lott. Didn't play a ton of snaps at Tennessee per game basis. He's a depth piece, but he's Milton Williams 2.0, in my opinion. So it's going with that approach at the Patriots with their defensive line, mainly with Norman Lott. He's more pro-ready than Femi Oladejo. It's wave after wave in the interior of your defensive line, bringing pressure to the opposing QB. And that's where I end up going 3 picks in a row. It's you don't get them now. The guys on the back end at those positions I don't love. Where at tight end, I'm like, do I go Terrence Ferguson? I thought about Mason Taylor in the 2nd round, and I said, let me wait, and let me go with a high floor over a high ceiling guy like a Mason Taylor or Terrence Ferguson, because I knew there'd be tight ends, running backs at the back end. But I see what you did too.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think one of my favorite picks that you had is Mitchell Evans, and it sounds like you got him, day 3, round 4? Yeah,
day 3, 5th round, 104. He's going to go top 150. He's going to go top 150.
Again, and I think what you said about, in terms of him working with Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper, I think, getting someone of his skill set in with those guys, I think that makes a lot of sense because they do, they match pretty well when it comes to it.
That's it, and I just watch him, and I'm like, this is Austin Hooper. I think he's a little springier than a Hunter Henry, but they're both just a smart guy, and I love just catches everything around him, and I just think that's important. Reliability, and just be a chain mover at the tight end position. Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, the perfect guys to develop him. All right, Sean, this is one that I'm excited for. You came up with some scenarios. So scenario 1, you shot these email to me. We're going to go through them. Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, all drafted in the first 3 picks. No one wants to trade up at 4. This is the chalk. This is scenario 1. I like it. Yeah. Who should the players draft? Who do you think? at 4. No trade up. Everyone's gone. The blue chips are gone.
Yep. So, and just to answer the question, I think they go Will Campbell. I think they should go Will Campbell. I think they will go Will Campbell as well. And I just, as I mentioned it earlier, I think, you have to address that position with that pick. I understand, the best player available and that sort of conversation. I just think like when it comes down to it, like Will Campbell is in the conversation for best player available at 4 when those two guys are off the board. I mean, it's not a drastic, you're not talking about, Jalen Walker all the way up here and Will Campbell all the way down here. Like, it's just, that's not the way it's going to work out there. He's in the mix, he's in the neighborhood. And I just think like you have to address that position. And like you said, this is a chalky situation. It certainly seems, I know Schefter came out the other day and said that it certainly seems like both Hunter and Carter will be off the board when the Patriots are picking at 4.
Yeah.
So I think this is the most likely scenario.
I like this. I went Armand Membu because if I'm going top 4, I got to stick and pick and I'm going tackle. I want a tackle. At worst, I'm going to have a right tackle. At best, I'm going to have a really good right tackle. At best, I'm going to have a really good left tackle. And I would take that. But the Will Campbell to the Armand Membu, it also makes sense. Vrabel spoke about it. Hey, man, when you're a first-round pick here, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. Who can handle that? Will Campbell will be able to handle that. But I want a tackle, not a guard. All right, scenario number 2 for my boy, Sean McGuire. Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and Shador Sanders were drafted with the first 3 picks. No team is interested in trading up for number 4. What player should the Patriots draft?
It's Abdul Carter, and I don't think it's close at this point.
Bingo.
I was really surprised to hear it was just Ian Rappaport just today, just the other day, and he came out, and he was more like floating a potential scenario as opposed to reporting anything, hard and fast. So I want to make that very clear. It was not a report, but he came out and said, like, if it goes like this, he thinks the Patriots are probably, is the word he used, are probably going to go Will Campbell. And then there's a potential that Abdul Carter slips past the Patriots and falls to 5 to the Jaguars.
That would be so
again,
stupid.
when I heard that, I was really surprised. And again, it was not a report. It was just like, in this hypothetical situation, this is what Rappaport probably thinks the Patriots will do. And I was really taken back by it. I do not think that is the right thing to do. Because again, for all I just said, 2 minutes ago about the best player available conversation, there is a big difference when it comes to Abdul Carter, when it comes to Will Campbell. It's not like, that's a completely different conversation. And I think the Patriots would be wise to draft one of the 2 blue chip players in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a ton of them. And if you luck out and that happens, you need to make sure that you don't let Abdul Carter continue to slide.
If he's there at 4 and the Patriots pick someone else instead of trading back, that would just be malpractice. Like, riot, get your picket fences, right? Like, get your torches, light them on fire, and go to one Patriot place. I wish I was joking. I'm not. If Abdul Carter is there and they stick and pick Will Campbell, at least trade back to 7. No, don't do that because the Jets would then get Abdul Carter. At least trade back to 8 where the Panthers would take Abdul Carter. He's not even in the conference. And then you could get Will Campbell at 8. That'd be insane. Mm-hmm. I did the same thing as you. It's Abdul Carter to me. All right, scenario 3. Did a great job laying out why you would take Abdul Carter. Scenario 3. Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and Abdul Carter are drafted with the first 3 picks. 2 teams are interested in trading for the number 4 overall pick. The Raiders, number 6 and 37, who would like Ashton Ginty and not like him to escape them. Or the Saints, 9 and 40. Each have offered their first and second round picks for 4th overall. Should the Patriots trade back? And if so, with what team? Or should they stay put and draft a player at number 4? Sean?
I'm trading back with the Raiders. I'm getting 6. I'm getting 37. I'm adding a top 40 pick, and I am hoping that Will Campbell is there at 6. If he is not, I think that is a little bit of a disappointment. But the way I think about this is, if the Raiders are trading up, they're most likely trading up for Ashton Ginty. Mm-hmm. And if Mason Graham is there at 5, I think that they are more likely to draft Mason Graham as opposed to Will Campbell. So I think, in this situation, the Patriots could go from 4 to 6, pick Will Campbell at 6. again, if they can't, I'm seeing whether it's Jalen Walker or Tyler Warren or drafting one of those guys there, and then using that other top 40 pick to get back into the first round for the offensive tackle later on. But I think, like, if you can trade back again without, and you just said this a few minutes ago, if you can trade back without you falling out of the top 8, top 10, certainly, I think that's still a good spot for you.
No, I like that. I went a little bit outside the lines here, but I'm trading with the Saints, but they have an extra third round pick. So I'm asking for 71. I'm asking for 9, 40, and 71. I'll give them 4 and 77. Hey, you guys are staying in the third, but we're moving up 6 spots. Because then the Patriots would have the 9th overall pick, still get your left tackle. They would have 38, 40, 69, and 71. And maybe, honestly, if you're the Saints, moving up from 9 to 4, moving up 5 spots, and you're leapfrogging these teams, might be able to just get 71, or their other third round pick, which is 93. So maybe you stick, and then it ends up being that you have 9, 38, 40, 69, 77, and 93. Maybe you get another third. Or here's the last one. There's door 4. I'm going to the Raiders, and I'm going 66, 37, Colton Miller. And I'll throw in 77 if you give us Colton Miller, which
I like that.
I don't think they would do. Again, I never discussed it with you, but when those reports came out with the Raiders, why would they create a need at left tackle in a bad left tackle draft where guys won't be there and they're losing ammunition to trade back in? But I like that scenario. And I see the straight up, just more picks, the better. I wouldn't mind moving back from 4 to 6 and getting 37 as well and having all those top 100 picks. We'd see. All right, scenario 4. This one I had fun with. Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and Shedeur Sanders are drafted with the first 3 picks. 2 teams are interested in trading for number 4 with Ashton Ginty and Abdul Carter on the board. Do you trade back or stay put? So Abdul Carter, best available is there. This is when best available makes sense. Ashton Ginty's there. What are you doing, Sean?
So the way I'm looking at these 2 teams is I'm sticking with the Raiders because we just went over that, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Again, they are still in the mix for Ginty. So we can kind of keep that same scenario, keep that same trade framework when it comes to that. I also, and I don't know if this is what you were going to touch on as well, but possibly the Cowboys. You get 12, get 44, get 149 from them. Maybe you consider that. I personally, with all that said, if Abdul Carter's there, I'm drafting Abdul Carter, and for all the reasons that we talked about earlier. He's a blue chip player. There's only 2 of them in the draft. I don't think it's worth adding, the 44th pick or the, whatever it was, 37th pick. I don't think it's worth that to pass up on him. So I'm sticking at that point. If Shedeur Sanders, pretty simply, I guess, if Shedeur Sanders is picked 3rd and Abdul Carter's on the board, regardless of what else happens around them, I'm selecting Abdul Carter.
All right, I like that. So I want to get fun with this one. I would stick and pick Abdul Carter. But if teams are calling to trade up, I was trying to think who would be realistic. The Falcons. They have absolutely no pass rush at all. They were terrible on the defensive line, and Abdul Carter's a game changer. So I went back to when the Texans traded the 12th, 33rd, and then a future 1st and 3rd with the Cardinals to move up to 3 to take Will Anderson. So the Falcons are at 15, Patriots are at 4. So I'm asking for the 15th overall pick, the 46th, 118th, and a future 2nd for the 4th overall pick. If they need a little juice, fine. I throw in 106 because I'm getting 118 in return. You stay top 15, Kelvin Banks, Josh Connerly, Josh Simmons, maybe Armand Membu. And guess what? If you don't like what it's looking and you're feeling out the board, you go, hey, Ante Ursary, Matthew Golden at 15. I would live with that because that's a guy, again, line him up all over the formation. Great deep ball tracker. Great at separation. His feet, his hips, his hands, all in sync. Moves at one. That's what gets him open. And you watch his Texas tape and everyone goes, man, he's wide open. You don't get wide open in the NFL. If you do, you're schemed open. Josh McDaniels will do that. He knows how to beat man coverage. And a sliver of an opening in the NFL, that is being open in the NFL. It's way different than college. So I would say if you stay top 15, that's, again, you could go best available. You could see what's there, but also you get a bevy of picks and a future second. And maybe you flip that future second to move up in this draft, or use those 2 seconds in next year's draft to move up into the first. And maybe all of a sudden you're looking at 2, say, top 30, top 25 picks, because the Patriots first rounder will be top 15. I like those scenarios though, Sean. Brought the Cowboys in.
Yeah, no, it's kind of funny, right? Like, because I understand what you're saying too. I cannot see them like trading back when it comes to if Abdul Carter is there, or I don't think it's likely that Travis Hunter will be there anymore. It just seems like Travis Hunter, the Browns, is more or less a lock at this point, but it seems like the door is still open ever so slightly on Carter being there.
Yep.
And if that's the case, I think you got to draft him.
Yeah, but that's a good scenario. Again, it makes sense. Why did Carolina, when we did our ideal, Mason Graham, if Mason Graham's there or Abdul Carter, both, they'd want to move up, jump ahead of the Jaguars who would take Mason Graham. Their defense is terrible, especially the defensive line. They need earth movers there. In just a second, you guys will hear from Yogi Roth of the Big Ten Network. But hey, the NFL Draft is this Thursday. What do the Patriots do with the 4th overall pick? Tune in to Foxboro Rush on the clock, live 2-hour NFL Draft special during the first round Thursday night. Kicking off at 8 p.m. on NESN Nation. We'll be on NESN following the Woo Sox game and live streaming on our YouTube page as well, hosted by myself and Travis Thomas. We'll have draft experts like Trevor Sikkema of PFF, Matt Miller of ESPN, NBC's Connor Rogers give their input on the prospects going. That's Foxboro Rush on the clock, live 2-hour NFL Draft special on NESN Nation from 8 to 9 p.m. Then on NESN immediately after the Woo Sox game and live streaming on YouTube. All right, Yogi Roth of the Big Ten Network stopped by on Boston Zen of the chat. Here's part of my convo with him going through some Big Ten prospects in this draft. I want to start with the biggest prospect coming out of the Big Ten, and Abdul Carter. We all know what he does. He's such a special talent. His athleticism, his bend, what he can be to just wreak havoc on the edge. What do you see in Carter that makes him worth that top 3 billing and makes him such a special player at the next level?
Well, I think... And I know you guys have talked about the draft ad nauseum. Congrats, you guys have crushed all your content with all of your guests. I've been enjoying consuming it over the last couple of weeks. With that said, I think everybody I've talked to in the NFL has been on the same note regarding the overarching theme of the draft, which is it's not loaded with Hall of Famers or it's not loaded with perennial Pro Bowlers. So I think like it's important to couch that because even if we look at the presumed number 1 pick in Cam Ward, who I love. I've known Cam since he was a pup, and now he's going to be the guy, right? We all, I think, would agree on that. A year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, is he the number 1 pick? And I say the same thing for Abdul Carter. Like, he's got a unique edge to him. Is he the second best player in the draft, third best player in the draft? Yes, this year. What would he have been a couple years ago? I don't know, but I do know this from being at Penn State, visiting with James Franklin, being on that campus, watching him work, watching him practice, watching him prepare, of course, watching him play, to your point. There is no one better coming off the edge this year in the draft. There is no one more violent. There is no one that can give you a pseudo comp to the Micah Parsons, which I think is a little bit of a stretch, but there's a version there, right? Linebacker to edge rusher. And I do think that I think it's important to note that he's just getting going. He only played 1 season on the edge, and he's the best edge rusher in America. So imagine another year. Imagine the tutelage that will come in the NFL. Who knows who will be going up against the tackle positions, the little things that they'll teach him. So knowing enough about him to be dangerous, I think that he's got all the tools to be a dynamic player, an impactful player, a day 1 type of player. I'd love to see what happens if he and Kayvon Thibodeau were paired together. That'd be pretty fun, right? Old Pac-12 to the Big Ten on the East Coast. That could be a pretty fun one to imagine. But I think he's got a really high ceiling. I don't think it's a finished product, and I think that's okay because he's only played 1 year at that position.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing. You saw his ascension, off-ball linebacker, go out, make plays. It was the Micah Parsons type route to what he became at Penn State, too. That's how James Franklin got him and onto the campus in State College. And I like that you say that, him with Kayvon Thibodeau, because that's where I see it being. We know the chalk, it's going to be top 3. Cam Ward, who you love. Then we'll see Travis Hunter. And then Abdul Carter just makes a ton of sense at 3 over at QB because they would just have such a dominant defensive line. And maybe they get QBs later. And we'll talk about those guys in a second. Sticking with Penn State, though, Tyler Warren's that next big name. And that's a guy that's seen as a top 10 overall prospect. But it's interesting because as you related to other drafts, like where would he go in other drafts? What would you see with Tyler Warren, who has been seen to go 7 overall to the Jets? If Patriots trade back, it makes sense, get an elite weapon. But also, is he worth that of a top 10, top 15 pick?
Yeah, I think and it's a fun conversation. I was filling in last week on Good Morning Football, and we had this conversation like, who's the best receiver not named Travis Hunter coming into the draft? And I love Tetro McMillan. I know you guys have talked about him recently on your show. I think Tyler Warren, among all the players, like I really believe this. If you looked at the top 10 players, skill position players on offense, who could you say in 5 years, in 7 years, will have the most Pro Bowl appearances? I just net out, and I think it's Tyler Warren. I really do. If you look at the way football is going, right? Ton of 2 tight end personnel groupings, the challenges that poses to a defense, his versatility. I mean, you've heard it with all your guests, like the tape don't lie. Like it doesn't. He's played true tight end, hand in the dirt. He's played a flex tight end. He's played in the backfield. He's played wildcat. He's played freaking center. He snapped it to Drew Aller, caught a touchdown against USC. I mean, he is a guy that was circled every single time out on Saturday, and very rarely was he slowed down, and he was never stopped. And he's done that throughout his career. I called some people I know at Penn State last week, and I said, tell me about who he is. What does he bring to a locker room? What's his character like? What's his temperament like? And they just raved about him. In this, me first society that we're often in, especially in the NIL era, he's the absolute opposite of that. Never stuck his hand out, never wanted a freebie, just wanted to go to work. So I just go to him, and I'd love to see the Raiders. I think they'll pick it back. I know the rumors and everything that came out of their press conference would be Ashton Genty, who again is an absolute star. But if it's me, I'm taking Tyler Warren, man, because I think he's the surest thing. I think he's the surest thing of any offensive skill player in this draft.
Yeah, and when you look at him, I think everyone goes with the Gronk comp, and I don't like comparing anyone to a Hall of Famer, the greatest at the position. But if he's taken top 10 and you get Tucker Kraft, but he's more ahead on schedule with his development, like a guy that could step in 70 catches, 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, and get better from that point. And to what you point out with Penn State, he wants to get better. He buys into blocking. He wants to get better there. He loves playing football. I think that's so valuable, what you get with a guy with a Tyler Warren. What about on the Michigan end, Colston Loveland? I mean, I think that's a guy that's more profiles like a wide receiver, really good pass catcher, 6'6", 250, just slightly slimmer than Tyler Warren, carries a weight different. What do you think of that tight end? More of a pass catcher, I would say, out of Michigan.
Yeah, different body type, different movements. The way you nailed it, the way he gets in and out of cuts, the way he runs his routes. I think that Tyler Warren is that guy that he just continues to find holes in zones. Oh, he finds ways to separate. When you look at him and you watch both of them on tape, and maybe it's the number, who knows what it is, but you look at Colston and think, oh, he's a little bit more explosive. But when you watch him, it's not really the case. Both, I think, dynamic players. Both will be starters in the NFL. Both will impact the team. Colston's going to be a steal for somebody because he's not going to be picked in the top 10, top 15, in my opinion. So wherever he ends up going, I think people are going to love him. He's a guy that at Michigan, you know the deal. You got to be able to put your hand in the dirt. You have to be able to be physical. You have to be able to navigate bright lights. They did a year ago, and challenging adversity moments. He did it this past season with the team obviously struggling, especially at the quarterback position. Never pointed fingers. I think he's a pretty impressive teammate when you talk to the guys around him. So yeah, another talent at tight end. And I go back to Dalton Kincaid. To me, he was one of the best tight ends I've ever evaluated, probably in the last 7 years, I'd say. He's got a ceiling that, to your point, I don't want to say he's going to be Gronk, but he's got a ceiling that he'll be, I think, at perennial Pro Bowls. I think that both of these guys have the capability to be doing both of those things. As we know, it's going to be, how do you operate in the facility? That's what I'm curious. I don't know Colston well enough to know the pedigree of his work ethic, of who he is. Everybody in Michigan raves about him, so I have no reason to dispute that. So I hope he goes and thrives, but I think both of those tight ends, I think it's a pretty good tight end group overall. And again, I think that just speaks to the position. It just continues to be one at every level that people want, whether it's high school, give me another tight end, college. I'm doing spring games all the time now. They want multiple tight end sets. Same thing in the NFL. I think you'll see guys like G. Scott. There'll be later draft picks out of Ohio State, but there'll be players that will be on all core 4 special teams. They'll have a role, whether it's the true tight end, the H-back Colston, and obviously Tyler can fit both of those bills.
Yeah, and if he falls to 22, no one knows his pedigree better than Jim Harbaugh. And Justin Herbert's going to be banging on the table. Go get me that guy. All right, let's talk a little offensive tackle. And I think someone that hasn't been spoken about enough, and it's, You're one of your guys, an Oregon Duck, Josh Connerly. What do you hear about him whenever you're up there on campus talking to the coaching staff? Because that's someone that it will be a back end of the first round pick. But say if a Kyle Shanahan maybe wants to trade back into the first round, maybe if Sean McVay wants to get younger on his offensive line, that's someone that's athletic, really smart, and fits into that outside zone scheme.
Yeah, it's fun when you go back to your notes from calling games. So I've been calling Oregon games for 20 years now, obviously this past season of the Big Ten. And I went back and looked at all the notes that I got, whether it was Kenny Dillingham, who coached him as a freshman, and he was kind of playing that jumbo extra tight end. You go to the BYU game his freshman year, he's in an entire drive and he's playing that extra offensive lineman, or Will Stein the last 2 seasons. And what Will Stein shared with me, the offensive coordinator quarterbacks coach for the Oregon Ducks, was he knows the system like a quarterback. And I remember calling him in a production meeting. I said, hold on. Did I read this right? Did you really say that? He goes, yeah. He knows pass pro. He knows where the ball needs to go. Like, he's that type of student of the craft. I've never heard that about an offensive lineman. I mean, I coached Tyron Smith when he was at USC way back in the day. We've obviously covered a bunch of guys that have come out into the NFL. I've never heard a coach say, he knows the game like a quarterback, knows the intricacies of the offense. I just think it speaks to his functional football intelligence. So, yeah, whether it's Kyle Shanahan, beautiful fit, right? You think of the West Coast offense, all the intricate things that they do there. There's a world where we're going to see tackle eligible within the Niners. If he ends up going there, we'll find Josh Connerly finding his way to get the ball in his hands, man.
And I can't imagine anything better, especially for a guy like you that works with the Elite 11. You have a right-handed quarterback. That's your left tackle. Is that second quarterback on the field? Yeah, I can't imagine how much that plays into the strength. What about Erante Ursary? That's the guy that out of Minnesota, playing left tackle, seen more of a top 35 pick, could slip to the second round. I think he'd be a tremendous fit with the Patriots, a value pick if they don't go left tackle in the first round. Maybe they go edge, maybe they go receiver best available. What are you hearing about Ursary, and what did you pick up from watching him this season when it came to Gophers games?
Yeah, called a couple other games this year against USC and UCLA, which was pretty fun because two different styles of defense to a certain degree, but also philosophically similar. With you look at Akaika Malloy, the defensive coordinator for UCLA, and Dan Lynn, of course, former NFL coach now with USC. The difference in those games was that if you look at UCLA, and you'll see it in the draft, they just had a little bit more speed, a little bit more power coming off the edge, right? Femi Oladejo, I think, will be another steal in the draft. You watch them going up against Ursary, let alone the other edge rushers in the Big Ten, and his athleticism, his bend. I think even when you talk to PJ Fleck about him, just the buy-in. You know, like, I think there is something in this era. I alluded to it a little earlier. When you're a premier position, quarterback, left tackle, elite wideout, what have you, corner, especially if the season isn't leaning towards the college football playoff, you can start looking at yourself and be like, all right, how am I going to grow my draft profile? How am I going to continue to evolve there? And when you talk to him, PJ Fleck or Greg Harbaugh, the offensive coordinator, they just talked about the selflessness of him. And then you watch the skill set. And it's impressive, man. As I referenced, his bend, his punch, his power, how he can move when they're trying to pull guys. I mean, it's a really intricate offense for Minnesota. To me, one of the most intricate offenses in the entirety of the Big Ten, just in terms of the pro-style stuff they're doing at the line of scrimmage.
Be sure to check out the rest of the Yogi Roth interview on NESN's daily sports podcast. Boston has entered the chat. We talk about all of the trending sports news in Boston and around the country. Available on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Twitch, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcast. All right, Sean, we'll do a quick mailbag. Our guy, Aaron Cody, 6750. He commented, I ran a few mock draft scenarios, and if the Patriots like Membu more than Campbell, the Jags had offered me 36 to go with their 5, giving up our 4 so they could get Campbell. We take Armand Membu, get an extra at 36, so they picked 36, 38. Took Trey Harris at 36. Erante Ursary at 38, interesting. Harold Fannin Jr., Cam Scatterbo, and then went trenches to round out the draft, depending who going left in the hundreds. Okay, a lot there. Interesting. Move up one, you get an extra second pick, and if you like Membu and the Jags are willing to offer that, I mean, I would go with it. Yeah, it's interesting that you'd go Membu, wide receiver Erante Ursary, but then you're saying that they know Ursary, because Ursary isn't a bona fide left tackle. He could be seen as a right tackle. Membu could seen as possibly making the move. That would be if that happened, Patriots are saying Membu's a left tackle or Ursary's a left tackle. Like one of those guys, vindication, they know he could play that position, which Ursary did do in college.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that either. I think it would come down to like, I wouldn't, if I view Will Campbell as the top tackle over Membu, I'm not trading that up just for 36. You know what I mean? Like if if I have him ranked even the slightest bit above Membu, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to take the best tackle on my board. So I do understand like the maneuvering of it, and adding a top, adding a 36 is legit. That's a legit add to go along with it, especially just for dropping one pick. But it has to be based on how they have that board.
You know what I would do in this scenario? If I'm like Membu's a tackle, I'm doing this trade. I'm going Armand Membu. Then to start out the second round, maybe Travion Henderson at Ohio State, and then Arante Ursary. Mm-hmm. You rebuild this offensive line. You give yourself a running back, and then you could still go with pass catchers later on, third round as well. All right, the Wasif. Everyone acts like Campbell's not going to get better. He's a rookie. He'll have coaches and gain experience. If people said, well, Manning threw 2 picks against Vandy, so he's going to get cooked by NFL DBs, they would have lost out on a Hall of Fame quarterback. Yeah and no. Like the Wasif, love the comment, agree. Like Will Campbell said, man, you mess up once a game, you're working for Amazon. You don't allow a sack once a game, you're a Hall of Famer. My thing is, he's going to be great at guard. I need a tackle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think and this is like kind of the part where we differ a little bit. I think it's, I still feel like he can play tackle, which is why I'm willing to take him at 4. And then again, if something happens down the line or something like that, his ceiling is so high, then he does become an all-pro guard. So I think like that's where I'm at when it comes to Campbell, and that's why I feel comfortable with them drafting him at 4, because I view him as a left tackle.
Love it. He's Sean McGuire. I'm George Balekji. This is Foxboro Rush. Sean's Christmas is Thursday, peeps. The NFL Draft. You'll catch him on Foxboro Rush on the Clock, our live 2-hour NFL Draft show. Catch us there on Nesson Nation, on Nesson's YouTube, and we'll be on Nesson once the Woo Sox game is all wrapped up. Live 2 hours breaking down the Patriots pick and all the picks in the first round as well. He's S-Mac. I'm GB. We'll see you guys Thursday night live on Nesson's YouTube.